Hello everybody and welcome back. As always, my name is Addie and this is the Knits by AJ Knitting podcast, and this is episode 66, I believe. I keep forgetting what episode we're on, but I think it is episode 66. So yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. I've made some really good progress on some of my projects. I'm really excited to chat to you all about them. I've got one finished object and 3 whips. I do have a very sleepy golden retriever with me today, so hopefully he's gonna stick around. He's looking incredibly chilled out back there. And my very grumpy spaniel is chilling underneath the table over there. So if you can hear some tip tapping or anything, it's probably him walking around on the wood floor. I also apologise if you can hear any construction work. Someone's having an extension or something done down the road. It's quite noisy today, but there's not really a huge amount that I can do about it. So I apologise if you can hear through the microphone, but hopefully it's not going to pick it up. And hopefully I'm just saying this and you guys won't hear a thing. So yes, usual spiel of sorry for the noise and dog calamities. But yes, I hope you've all had a wonderful couple of weeks. It's been quite busy here again. To be honest, it's always busy at the moment. We are in full swing of more puppy training. We are going into the kind of almost adolescent phase where he's got a little bit more confidence and wants to do his own thing and not listen to what I have to say all the time. So that's been quite difficult, but it's all part of the kind of curve of having a puppy and all of that kind of thing. Are they like digging up the road or something? Dude, what are you doing? I can't actually see what's going on, but it's quite noisy. Yeah, so it's been quite a busy couple of weeks. Today is also my daughter's last day, like full day of school. So we've been getting ready for the summer holidays. So yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks, but I have managed to do a fair bit of work on all of my knitting projects. I've not managed to get any sewing done. Again, I want to be sewing and I have loads of things that I want to sew. I just don't really have the motivation to like bring all of my sewing machines and everything downstairs and do it. And especially because we were going through a heat wave. So yeah, not a lot of sewing has been going on because I couldn't bear the idea of standing and pressing things with my iron when it was like over 30 degrees outside and incredibly humid. So yeah, no sewing, just a lot of knitting. I will briefly mention what I'm wearing because this was a new purchase over the past couple of weeks. Rebecca Clow of the Creya Bayer did another drop of t-shirt designs, and this one really took my fancy this time. So I got the skeins, the multicolored skeins on the white t-shirt. So yeah, that is what I am wearing today. I always think it's good when because I wanted to get some t-shirts from the Summer Lee t-shirt drop. I think she uses the same company for the t-shirts, but I couldn't get a hold of the sizing chart, and I didn't want to. I have quite a specific fit of t-shirt that I like. Like I like it to be quite oversized and not tight on my hip. Oh, sorry guys, dropped my phone on the floor. And not tight on my hip. So yeah, I wanted to know what the sizing was going to be. Couldn't find it anywhere, and luckily Rebecca Clow does put the sizing chart, like a link to the company sizing chart on her website. So yeah, this is what it looks like on my chest measurements, in case you were looking and wanted to know what size people got. So yeah, that is what I'm wearing. Let's get into the knitting. So finished object wise, I only have one. I had hoped to get something else finished this week, but to be honest, it just didn't happen. So yeah, just the one finished object, and it is my vanilla socks that I have been working on for absolutely ages. So these are just a pair of self-drafted vanilla socks that I knit up in a mini skein set from the Lonely Knitter. The mini skein set was themed on Wicked. I've not actually seen Wicked yet, but now that it's on streaming services and things, I think I'm gonna have a nice little movie day with my daughter over the summer holidays, whilst it's a bit wet over the first couple of weeks. So yeah, I think we might sit down and watch it, but it might have to be in a couple of sittings because I think it might be a bit long for her to sit through in one sitting, but that's fine. But anyway, these are my socks and I absolutely love how they've turned out. So I just did 10 round stripes on each colour. I did do jogless stripes, and I used the method that I used in my Charlie pullover, where you knit one round and then when you get to the beginning of the second round you knit in the stitch below so that they kind of level out and you don't get a notch. And I think it has worked to a certain extent, but it's definitely better, I think, on the foot than it is on the leg. And I think I've sewn in the ends, like twisted them the wrong way around on a couple, so they're not amazing. There is still a bit of a notch in some of them, like here, but it's definitely better than not doing jogless stripes. So yeah, there's another one there. But to be honest, they're socks. I kind of more did the jogless stripes just because I wanted to, and less so because I thought it was actually going to be like a huge like visual eyesore. Because to be honest, they're socks and they're going to be on the side of my feet, and I don't really think that anyone's really going to notice if my stripes are jogless or not. But I'm still very happy with how they turned out. I think I must have had a bit of a like tension change, or perhaps I knitted one on the wrong needle size, because I was knitting these two at a time but on two separate small circular needles, and I have multiples of 2mm and 2.25s. So I'm not sure if I maybe picked up a 2.25 and a 2 to knit these on, because one of them is just ever so slightly shorter than the other. So if I hold them up by the ribbing, you see this one is ever so slightly shorter in the toe than this one. But I think it might also just be a tension thing, because when I tried them on, one of the legs was ever so slightly longer on one of them than the other. And when I started these, we had only just brought Biggs home, and it was quite stressful, I would say. And maybe that came out in my knitting, because obviously I was having to pick things up, put them down very quickly, toilet training the puppy. And like if you've ever brought home a puppy, then you'll know that sometimes they can be a little bit nippy and you have to kind of train that out of them. So we were doing that, especially important because we have a 5-year-old and she obviously doesn't want to have little puppy teeth grazing her. I mean, he never bit with the actual like intention of hurting, but they need to learn. Yeah, and he was particularly fond of fabrics, shall we say, which is still something that we're having to train out of him. Like he won't actually like destroy your clothes or anything, but he likes to pick things up like out of the washing basket and walk around with them. And so yeah, my knitting was definitely at risk. And so I think that kind of tension in me came out in my knitting and made one of my socks ever so slightly tighter than the other. And you can kind of see that one of them is, I think, slightly narrower than the other. But it's not a problem when I'm wearing them. And to be honest, I think as they kind of stretch out as I wear them, I don't think it's really going to be too noticeable. And a lot of it has come out in blocking. The legs seem to be pretty much the same length now, and there's just a little bit in the toe that's sort of slightly off. But like I say, not going to bother me, and I'm actually really, really happy with these. They are so lovely and soft. I really like Laura from The Lonely Knitter. I like her Luxe sock base, which is what these are knitted in. It's a 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and it holds up really, really well. I've got a couple of other pairs of socks in this base that I wear, I'd say at least once or twice a week, and yeah, they are holding up really, really well. I think I knitted them like maybe 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and have worn them pretty much consistently since I finished them. And yeah, they're holding up really, really well. So I expect these to hold up pretty well as well. And I think these are just going to be a fun pair of socks to have. I don't really have that many pairs of stripy socks, and I'm not really sure why, because I really do like them. Although the ends were a lot. It took me a good hour to sew in the ends on each sock, even though I had done a couple of the ends at the beginning. And someone did leave a comment on my last video that there's a bit in Summer Lee's book, The Sock Project, on so like knitting over your ends as you go, especially when you're doing like a striped sock or something. So I'm definitely going to give that a read before I start another pair of striped socks, so that I can kind of do that as I go to kind of lessen the amount of ends. I mean, I'm not completely opposed to sewing in ends. I really don't mind it. It's just, I get impatient to have the finished thing and sometimes find it quite frustrating having to sew in lots of ends. But to be honest, not the end of the world. And actually, I'm just really happy to have these in my wardrobe. And so I cast these on June the 1st, and I cast them off on July the 16th. So these were on my needles for a grand total of 46 days. So that's not too shabby, to be honest. Oh, for reference, I used a 2mm needle for my 3x1 ribbing, and then I used a 2mm for all of my, I used a 2mm for my 2x1 ribbing, and then I used a 2.25 for the rest of the sock, including the heel and the toe, and then I've just done a wedge toe and a heel flap and gusset, and I knit my socks on 64 stitches. Well, I do 64 stitches for my socks. So yes, I used a total of 62 grams to knit these. So not the whole mini skein set. There were 5 mini skeins, they were 20 grams, so I had 100 grams. So then I used 62. I used pretty much all of the pink, the darker pink, because I used it for the ribbing and for the heel. So I didn't really have a huge amount of that left. And I was really glad that I didn't end up having to use it for the toe as well, because I would have run out. But other than that, I still have a fair bit left of each colour. So I might try and knit up like a matching pair for my daughter or something without the dark pink, or with like a smaller stripe of the dark pink, in there. But yeah, and cost-wise, I obviously didn't pay anything for the pattern because these were self-drafted. The yarn for the mini skein set cost me £20, so the grand total for this pair of socks is about £20. But like I say, I only used 62 grams, so I think I'm going to get something else out of these yarns as well. Okay, so that was my only finished object. I do now have 3 whips to chat through, and I will start off with my Amelia top. So I did talk about this last time. This is a pattern by Iris of HIRIS Makes. I'm making size 1, and I'm using a 5mm and a 4.5mm needle, which I think last time I said was 1 needle size up from the pattern. It's actually not. It is the needle size recommended in the pattern. I thought that I'd had to go up a needle size, but I actually didn't. So that's quite nice to be knitting on the same needle size. I think I did that for my other one as well. This is the second time I'm knitting this pattern. I also knit one up in Cardiff Cashmere. I'll put a picture of that one up here. But this one is in Drops Cotton Merino in the colours Off-White and Mustard. And when I showed this last week, I had made a bit of a boo-boo in picking up my yarns. I thought that I had more of the white. I had in fact got more of the yellow. So I thought I had bought enough to make a white t-shirt with yellow stripes, but I in fact had only bought enough to make a yellow t-shirt with white stripes. And obviously I ran out of yarn. So I had to do an order, and that order did arrive. So I have managed to make some more progress on this now. The yarn that I ordered, I had to order from a different shop from the original order, and I ordered 3 extra balls of the white, so I'd have enough to finish this project. And they are different dye lots, but I don't think you can really tell. It's really hard to see if they're different because there's a yellow stripe like directly behind where the change is, but everything above the marker is one dye lot and everything below the marker is another dye lot. And I don't think that there's a discrepancy. I might be editing this back and then looking at it and thinking, oh my goodness, there is a big discrepancy there. But to the naked eye, I can't actually see it. And I've tried it in multiple different lighting situations and I can't really see a change in the color. It is like a bit of a mild white. So there's like there's bits of cream and bits of white in there. So I think that's kind of helping to make it less sort of a stark difference. But also it's commercial yarn. I kind of expected that it was probably going to be fairly spot on with their dye lots, because it's also like almost an undyed colour. So yeah, I don't think it's made too much of a difference. But anyway, I've made quite a lot of progress on this. So the marker is where I was last week. And so since then I have done all of this body. I think I had done all but 2 increases on the yoke. Hello. You're yawning. Yeah, I'd done all but 2 increases on the yoke. So I finished up those with when the new yarn arrived, and then I've split for sleeves, and I've done, I think it's like sort of 15, maybe 20 centimeters on the body. I haven't got that much further to go. I will try this on and get some B-roll of me wearing it so you can kind of see how it looks. Oh, my friend's disappeared. But yeah, really got quite a lot done on the body. And then I finished up this cream stripe. I'm ready to do another yellow one, but I decided that before I got into that last yellow stripe, I would get the neckline on, because it was sitting pretty wide, and I thought I need to get a neckband on this so that I can see how that's going to affect the length of the body. And then I also wanted to get the sleeves on so that I just had the body left to do, because I might do like a mid-project block on this to kind of see how much the weight of the yarn pulls the body length down, because I've not worked in this yarn before. And sometimes, like, even when you, like, I have swatched for this, so I do know obviously what my final gauge should be, but I don't think with a cotton yarn or a cotton blend yarn you can fully anticipate what your fabric is going to do unless you've knit like a really big swatch, or if you've like weighted your swatch, because the weight of the rest of the garment does tend to pull it down quite a lot. At least that's what I found when I used a cotton and wool blend to do my lily top, because that grew in length quite a lot due to the weight of the garment. And that was in a fingering weight, and this is in a DK. So I do expect that there's going to be some growth in this, and I don't want to end up with a t-shirt that's like an odd length. I do want this to be kind of like somewhat cropped, so that it just comes below the waistband of my jeans, so that it's not too long, but it's also not going to like keep riding up every time I move my arm. So yeah, I think I'm going to do the next sleeve and then get the whole thing blocked when I don't really have that much yarn attached to it, and see where we're sitting. I will also have to sew in all the ends. So I did do one sleeve as well this week, and I made a couple of modifications to the sleeve because of the way that I'm doing my stripes. These stripes are not the stripes that are in the pattern. It does come with a striped option, but that's for like a 2-row stripe. So 2 rows of main color, 2 rows of contrast color, and then repeated. But I didn't want my stripes to be that small. And so I decided to do my own stripe pattern. So I've done 16 rounds of the off-white and then 6 rounds of the yellow. And yeah, so that meant that my sleeves, if I had done the recommended amount of rows and length in the pattern, then I was going to end up with the ribbing starting like halfway through a white stripe. And I thought that was going to look a bit funny. I wanted it to be like there was a contrast stripe and then there was going to be the ribbing and everything in white, or I wanted to be able to do the ribbing in the yellow. Now, I was going to end up with sleeves that were going to be far too long if I did the contrast stripe that I needed to do, because I'd done my 16 rounds in the yoke before I had to pick up for the sleeve. It was going to be too long if I did the 16 rounds and then did 6 rounds of the yellow and then did another 16 rounds of the off-white and then did the ribbing. My sleeves were going to be kind of like down here, and that's not the look that I want for this top. So I kind of then decided that I was going to have to do the ribbing in white, so it wasn't going to match the neckband, but it was going to give me the length of sleeve that I wanted and not kind of start halfway through a stripe, which is all complete personal preference. And I think the sleeves on this do kind of sit at quite a nice level now. And I think because the neckband is stockinette, like a folded stockinette neckband, and the sleeves and the bottom of the body are ribbing, I don't think it looks too funny that then they don't match, because like the stitch pattern doesn't match either. It looks quite intentional. And I wanted it to be a yellow neckband because I wanted there to be quite a big like contrast between like my skin tone and then the start of the t-shirt. Also, I had quite a lot of yellow left over, so I thought, why not? And since I had to wait for the new yarn to arrive, I might as well have got the neckband on, because it was pretty much the only thing that I could do unless I wanted to wait for the yarn to arrive. So yeah, I think it looks quite nice, to be honest. I am not fussed. I might end up with a yellow ribbing on the bottom of the body, in which case that will kind of match up, and then the sleeves will be in white. But yeah, I just wanted it to sort of not have massively long sleeves. So I decided to not add in the extra increases and yoke depth that you can add into this pattern. There are instructions when you get to the yoke to try, like get to the end of the yoke, to try it on and then see where it's sitting on you. And then there are instructions to add in further increases for the sleeves if you think your sleeve's going to be too tight or if you need more yoke depth. But I didn't feel like I needed that. I didn't do that on my other one either. I felt like the sleeves were perfectly fine, and that if I was going to add in any more, then my yoke depth would be too long for my armhole depth, if that makes sense. It meant it was going to sit too low. So I opted not to do that, and I think that it's going to fit perfectly fine without any extra space in the sleeve. I am finding that my neckband is sitting a little bit floppy at the back, but I think that blocking is going to fix it. I think it's just where, because I didn't sew my neckband down, I did my usual like pick up a stitch in the first row of the neckband and then knit that and your last row of stitches together and bind off that way. And because when you do that, it kind of pulls this row of stitches quite tight. I think once it's blocked out, it will actually sit up properly. I vaguely remember this happening to my last one as well. And that's blocked out perfectly fine. So I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. But yeah, hopefully blocking is going to fix it. Oh, I also made my ribbing ever so slightly shorter on the sleeves by 1 centimetre, just so that it didn't look ridiculously long on the end of the sleeve. And I did the tubular bind off that was recommended in the pattern. But yeah, I haven't got that much left to go on this, so hopefully I will get this finished fairly soon. I need to sew in my ends and obviously get the other sleeve on, and then I'm going to do that mid-project block and see where we're sitting. But so far I'm very, very happy with how this is turning out. The yarn is really, really nice and soft. It is a little bit splitty, which is kind of irritating, but yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to having it in my wardrobe now that the weather has cooled down a little bit. But yeah, that was my Amelia top, and I cast this on July the 3rd, and so it's currently been on my needles for 20 days. So my next whip is my modified Lake Stripe tee by OZETTA, and I am knitting up size 3 in this, and I'm using Woolly Knit Merino in the colour Mulhaken Oatmeal, which is this lovely oatmeal-y kind of colour, and also Medulla Green, which is probably one of my favourite shades of green. I really, really like this kind of muted sort of sagey colour. So yeah, I'm using the 4-ply merino in both of those, and I'm using a 3.25mm needle to knit this. So I've made a fair bit of progress on this. I think last time when I showed this, I had done 1 saddle, and I have now done both saddles, and I connected the back panel, and I've done the short rows and the stockinette portion, and I've done the increases for the underarm, and then I've picked up the fronts and done the short rows on each side of that to shape the neckline, joined the neck, done the stockinette portion, and I've also done the underarm increases on the front. And then I think I've done about 10 centimetres of the body. So I've done a fair bit on this, and it's one of those projects that I just can't put down. Like the fabric on it is just so lovely to work up, and this yarn is a real delight. It's really, really light and airy. Sorry, I dropped a stitch. But yeah, it's really, really light and airy, and it's not at all splitty, which I do often find because it's quite a loose ply. Oh, there we go. So it's like a 2-ply. I'm not sure how well this is going to show up. It's like a 2-ply yarn. It's quite loosely plied together. And I use ChiaoGoo red lace needles. Is that what they are? The ChiaoGoo twist. I don't think they're the spin ones. But either way, they're the metal ChiaoGoo needles, and they're pretty sharp. And I do often find that sometimes with like loosely plied yarns that I end up accidentally splitting my yarn, especially when I'm knitting stockinette and I'm not really looking at what I'm doing, because this has been a real kind of like comfort project that I don't really need to look at. When I was working flat, I didn't really need to kind of look at it. I just needed to know like what number row of the stripe pattern I was on. And now it's in the round, I'm just like flying through it. So I've been using this as like my knitting and reading project, because now that I'm into the body, it's just absolutely flying off my needles. And I've been knitting most of the body on a 16-inch circular, because even though I've got like 250 plus stitches on there, because it's fingering weight, they're not bulky stitches, and I just find it easier to just be able to move my stitches around when they're on a much smaller cable. So yeah, I haven't put them on, I'd had them on a longer cable whilst I was knitting flat because it was just easier to have that maneuverability with my needles, and now they're on a shorter needle, and like I say, it's just absolutely flying off my needles, and it's just an absolute delight to knit up. OZETTA's instructions are really, really clear as always. I really like the layouts of her patterns, and I like that she includes not only lengths but row numbers as well for her, like how long you need to knit your like stockinette panel for, or your body for, and things like that, or how many stripes you need. Because although I got stitch gauge, I didn't get row gauge. My row gauge is a bit big. I think the pattern suggests to have 40 rows in 10 centimeters, and I've got 36 or something like that. So I've got a fair few less rows over 10 centimeters. But actually, I think it worked in my favour ever so slightly. So I'm knitting size 3 of this instead of size 1, which would be what I would knit to get the recommended ease for my bust measurement. But I'm knitting size 3 because this is meant to be a t-shirt pattern, and I wanted more ease in there so that I could wear this as a jumper. And because I want more ease, I knew I was going to want a longer underarm depth. So it worked out quite nicely that if I knit at my row gauge, my bigger row gauge, if I knit the amount of rows that she suggests for the back and front panels before you join for the underarm, then I was going to have the extra depth in the underarm to be able to wear my t-shirts underneath and not have them sort of bunch up like this underneath my jumper, which, I mean, it's not the end of the world if that happens, but it's kind of irritating when you're having to kind of like sort your sleeve out inside your jumper and everything. I'd much rather be able to just do that once when I put it on, and then just not have to think about it later on whilst I'm wearing it. So yeah, it worked out quite nicely in that way. But yeah, I've been just absolutely flying through this. I really, really enjoyed it. And the fabric that it knits up is just so, so soft. I don't know about you, but in the summer, my skin gets very, very dry when we're not having ridiculously humid days. But when it gets hot, my skin gets very, very dry, especially if I'm out in the sun a lot. And at the end of the day, when I want to put on something warm, I don't want to put on anything that is at all scratchy, even if it's not like usually scratchy. Sometimes even things that I wear like normally in the winter, I can't put them on in the summer because my skin just feels it just feels too dry. So when I'm feeling like that, I want something that is really, really buttery soft. And this fabric is exactly what I want. And so I think this is going to be the best like summer throw on jumper because it's also fingering weight. So it's really, really light and airy. I think the next thing that I want to do though is add the neckband on, because I am knitting a couple of sizes up from my usual size. The neckband is sitting quite wide on me. So I think that before I go any further, I want to get the neckband on. Also because I don't know how long I want the body to be until I've got the neckband on, because obviously it's sitting quite wide, so it's sitting lower down than it usually would. And so I need to get the neckband on so that I can kind of make sure that I'm not accidentally making it like a couple of inches too short. But I also want to change the neckband from the neckband in the pattern. So the neckband in the pattern is a 1x1 half twisted rib. I don't want to do a 1x1 half twisted rib. I want to do just a normal standard 1x1 ribbing. And I also want to deepen the neckband so that it's more of like a jumper than a long sleeve tee, and so that it matches my original Lakes pullover, which has got a really deep 1x1 rib neckband on it. I also think I'm probably going to lengthen the ribbing ever so slightly on the sleeves and on the body, just to make it match up with my other Lakes pullover, because I really do like that deep, like long ribbing. I don't think I want to make it too long, like as long as those though, but slightly longer than it is in the pattern. But yeah, so I think that's also going to kind of bring it in quite a lot, because I want to obviously lengthen that ribbing. But yeah, I'm just going to be flying through this now. I am going to stop and do the neckband now before I get any further on. I do want to get a sleeve on as well, but I'm hoping that if I get the neckband on and then if I finish the body, then I can hopefully knit the instructions for the sleeve once the update for the pattern that OZETTA has said is coming for the long sleeve version, once that has been released, because it currently hasn't been released. And if I wait for it to be up, for the pattern to be updated, then I won't have to do any maths or anything to sort out the sleeves for myself, which we all know that I'm not opposed to doing. I've done it with my Lily top, I've done it with a couple of other things as well. But if I can just follow the instructions in the pattern and not really have to do much maths on my own, then that'd be quite nice as well. So yeah, I'm hoping that by the time I've done the neckband and the body and everything, that will be done. But yeah, it's just absolutely flying. The stripes obviously make it go really, really quickly. The fact that it's kind of fairly mindless is making it go nice and quickly as well. And yeah, I just really, really love this fabric. It's really, really lovely. And I'm hoping that I'm going to have enough of my contrast colour left over that I can make something else in this yarn as well, because this yarn comes in 20-gram hanks. So this is a 20-gram cake now. It's looking a bit worse for wear. Because Biggs got a hold of it and decided to wander off with it. So yeah, I'm hoping that I can get something else out of this as well. So yeah, that is my progress on my Lakes stripe pullover. I will get a stitch marker and pop this in here so that I can see where I got to next time. But yeah, I cast this on July the 5th, and so it's currently been on my needles for 18 days. And I am pretty impressed with how much progress I've managed to make on that, to be honest, because I thought I'd had it on my needles for much longer than 18 days. But yeah, there we go. That is my Lakes stripe modified tee. And so that brings me to my final whip for today, which is a new cast on. And also the only thing that is not striped in this podcast, because apparently I seem to be in my stripes era about 6 months later than everybody else, or at least a year later than everybody else anyway. But yeah, I just like stripes. So these are a pair of socks that I've cast on since I finished my vanilla socks. And these are a pair of thermal stitch socks, and they are completely inspired by a pair of socks that I saw Ash from Smash Knits knitting, and she wrote up her notes in her Ravelry project, and I am following her notes to make these socks. So I have made a couple of changes. I'm doing mine on 64 stitches, whereas she did hers on 72, but she did write in her notes that the pattern should work for any number of stitches that's divisible by 4, so that worked out pretty well. And and I am using a 2mm and a 2.25mm like I usually do for my socks. So I have done the ribbing, and I went for 30 rounds of 2x2 ribbing, whereas I think Ash did 20, just because I wanted a slightly longer ribbing on mine. And then I've just been working down the leg in the thermal stitch pattern, which has been a really kind of like nice, comforting, textured pattern to work up, because it's essentially just 2 rows of 2x2 rib and 2 rows of stockinette. So it's very, very easy to memorize, and it's very, very easy to read as you're knitting. Like, I don't really feel like I need to look at the kind of instructions anymore. I'm very happy to just kind of get on with it and be able to read where I was when I put it down and picked it back up again, which is quite nice. So yeah, I've just been flying through these really. The yarn that I'm using is a skein of merino silk cashmere that I got from Dina's Home of Crafts at, I think it might have been the Summer Wool Festival last year. I can't quite remember. I definitely got it at a festival, but I just can't remember where I got it from. But it's been sat in my stash for, I'd say, at least a year, and I've been looking for like the perfect project to knit it up into. I knew I wanted to make socks, but I didn't think I wanted to make a pair of stockinette socks with it. I thought I wanted to make something that was a little bit more special, a little bit more able to allow the yarn to shine. And I think that this is the pattern for it. It's really kind of helping to show off like the sheen from the silk and like the depth of the colour in there. The colourway is called Pure Gold, and I just absolutely love it. I think it's so stunning. And I'm really looking forward to having these as like a really nice sort of like warm, squishy, kind of luxurious pair of socks for the autumn winter. I'm like fully into my like autumn cozy prep at the moment. I've got my my lake stripe pullover ready for like those sort of slightly chillier mornings when it's just starting to go into autumn. I've got my cozy socks ready to go in my boots for all of the lovely like crunchy leaf walks that we get to go on with the dogs and everything. I'm willing autumn to come. I'm not a summer person. I really, really want it to be autumn. I want cozy jumpers. I want to be able to wear all of my knitwear again. I'm like mourning the fact that I've had to put it away in my wardrobe. And so yeah, making these is kind of like me willing autumn to come, because I just want to be able to wear my squishy warm socks again. But yeah, I am making these to be a slightly more like slouchy pair of socks as well. So I want a really nice long leg on them before I do the heel and the foot. So I think I'm pretty much almost there with the leg. I think I want to do maybe 4 or 5 more pattern repeats before I get there. I've just put this marker on here so I know which side is like the first set of stitches, because I usually would knit my socks on a small circular, but I've decided to do these on magic loop because I don't like knitting ribbing on small circulars. And so I'm just finding it a little bit more comfortable to knit on magic loop. But I didn't want to end up doing you know that thing where you accidentally think you've finished the round because you've got across one set of stitches, and then you do one round on one set of stitches and one round on another lot of stitches, because that often happens to me when I'm not really paying attention, or I'm watching TV whilst I'm knitting, which I often am when I'm knitting these. So I thought if I stick a marker on one side, then I'm more likely to know which side of the sock I'm on and be able to check which row I'm on and not have to make so many mistakes. So yeah, like I say, I am almost at the point of doing the heel. I'm not sure if I want to do a short row heel or if I want to do a heel flap and gusset on these. I'm leaning more towards doing a short row heel, just because I haven't done one in a while, and I thought it might be nice to do a different heel because I've done so many heel flap and gussets at the moment. And I will probably use the short row heel pattern from Charlotte Stone's Colourwork Socks, Charming Colourwork Socks book. I've done that a couple of times before, and sort of just put it into any like a vanilla sock that I've been knitting, and it works quite well and it fits my heel quite nicely. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think I should do a heel flap and gusset, or do you think I should go for a short row heel? Because those are the two that I find fit my feet best. But yeah, I'm undecided as to whether or not the short row heel will suit this kind of pattern sock, or if I should just go straight into a heel flap and gusset like Ash did on hers. So yeah, that is my progress so far on these. I've only done sock 1 so far. I need to get going on sock 2, but I'm going to get this one finished because I couldn't get into the centre of my yarn without pulling half of the centre out of it. So I'm just pulling from the outside. I was going to do one on one needle and one on another needle like I did with my vanilla socks, my striped ones that I finished up. But yeah, the cake was just not going to let me do that, and I couldn't be bothered to rewind it. So I'm going to do one at a time. But yeah, that is my thermal stitch socks so far. And I cast these on the 18th of July. So they have currently been on my needles for 5 days. And I'm pretty happy with that. But yeah. So that is everything that I have to share knitting wise this week. I have gained the other dog. Who has now gone off to go and sleep behind the tripod. Are you going to go over there? Good boy. Good boy. Yeah, so like I say, that is everything that I have to share knitting wise this week. We are about to go into the summer holidays, like I say, so I'm sure that my progress is going to plateau somewhat. But yeah, I'm really enjoying everything that I've got on the needles at the moment. So that's always quite nice, even though everything is striped. But I guess I just go through these phases every now and then. One week everything is textured, next everything's striped, then I'll go through a stockinette phase. But yeah, as always, I would love to know what you guys have got on the needles at the moment, what you've been working on whilst you've been watching, or what you are going to cast on fairly soon. If you're in the if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, are you also kind of getting ready to start thinking about autumn knits, get them ready for when the weather eventually cools down again? Or are you still in your summer knitting phase? And I guess if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, I hope winter is kind of treating you well. It's not too chilly, and that you've got plenty of knitwear to wrap up in. But yeah, thank you all so very much for watching. As always, if you have enjoyed this video, please do feel free to give it a like. Or if you're new here and you want to stick around, then please do consider subscribing. It would be lovely to have you here. And I will catch up with you all in a couple of weeks with some more progress. Happy knitting!